Wisconsin's 75th Assembly District Representative Dave Armstrong is our very special guest today, Thursday, November 2nd, 2023. For DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden, and you're watching DrydenWire Live, presented by Americans for Prosperity Wisconsin. AFP Wisconsin works to reignite the American dream and break down government barriers that hold us back from our full potential. Learn more at americansforprosperity.org and join AFP to fight for more freedom for all Wisconsinites. A special thank you to some of our recent guests on DrydenWire Live, including Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District Representative Tom Tiffany, Wisconsin State Senator Romaine Quinn. It's not really DrydenWire Live, it's a different show, but Barron County Sheriff Chris Fitzgerald, who joins me every Tuesday for our Positive Tuesday with Ben and Fitzy show, and author Mark Hill, who was Kirk Anderson's guest on the Kirk Anderson Show, where they talked about helping first responders deal with the real stress experienced on the job. If you've missed those or any of our previous shows, you can find them on our website at DrydenWire.com, right here on our Facebook page under our videos tab, or on our YouTube channel. Just go to youtube.com/DrydenWire. But today we are chatting with Wisconsin's 75th Assembly District Representative Dave Armstrong. Dave, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing great.
Yeah, and we barely made it. So we didn't get a chance to do a test yesterday for the show. And we were just like, well, hopefully it'll work out in the morning. And it did take us all of our 10 minutes leading up to the show to work out some technical things. But we made it, dude, on time.
Exactly. I've been fighting the flu the last 2 days. So when you said you didn't want to do the setup last night, I thought, God, hallelujah. So
oh, it's kind of going around right now. So I should have looked it up. I forgot to do it this morning. The last time you were on. The last time I remember had to have been at least a year ago when you came on, I think, with Fitzy and I.
Yep. Yeah, I think so. It was a long time ago.
And I think we talked about your role as the executive director for the Barron County Economic Development Corporation, not your capacity as a legislator. But for people who don't know much about you, let's give them a quick, bio about you.
Sure. I am the director of Barron County Economic Development. Been now for just about 11 years. Been representative for the 75th. Now I'm in my second session. That's been good. I mean, it's been interesting. First session was kind of a mess because you're more like drinking with a fire hose, Now you've kind of figured out how to get things done, and it's more meaningful now because you can affect things, I guess.
I've always thought that about those 2-year terms because there's no prerequisite. It's not like you're an assistant manager and you get you understand the basics about how to run a store, and now you're a store manager. Like, you run and it's your first year, I don't know what I'm doing. Second year, you're campaigning, and you could be out, and it's like, I actually didn't do anything.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I agree. Where this time, now that you're back in, you know how the committees work, you know how to get things done, you know who you need to get co-sponsored on your bills to move it along, you know where you're going to run into, bottlenecks maybe in the Senate or the other house, etc. You've got a better idea of, all right, what will the governor sign and won't he sign? So, yeah, no, you're right. Second term is really, you can be more impactful.
Yeah. So you still do both, and that's a common thing. Like Romaine Quinn, I think he still does real estate. I don't know how much time he really gets to do it. But your job, I mean, that's more, I wouldn't say a hobby for him. That's a legit other job, being in real estate.
Right.
But yours isn't like, I'll just kind of pick when I go to work and when I don't. That's a full-time job itself, right? So how do you kind of balance those two?
Yeah, it's very much a full-time job. And see, a big part of the economic development side is startups. We do a lot of startups, help people start businesses. So basically, depending on how often I'm in Madison, like this week, none. Well, part of it, the flu. I was supposed to have a hearing on artificial intelligence yesterday in Green Bay. I couldn't get to. But most of the time I'm down there either 2 days a week down there, 3 up here, or 3-2.
Okay.
But you've always got the weekends. So I'm always meeting with startups either at night or on the weekend whenever they can meet. So
sure. The AI stuff. Is that because you are the executive director for the Barron County, all that, or is that a legislative thing? And if it's legislative, what do you guys have to do with AI?
Yeah, it's legislative. We've got a task force on AI. We've got one on child obesity, and I think there's one other as well. But I wanted the AI because its effect is going to be there's no way around it. All right, there's no way to stop AI. Let's put it that way. That's probably the best way to start. It's exciting with the things that it can do from it, and absolutely terrifying with some of the things that they can do as well. So
Terrifying
that's
how?
oh, I mean, you can go all the way as far as the old Skynet and
Oh yeah,
Terminator movies,
yeah.
but basically what they've done right now is you've got massive language models. All right. So with these models that they set up for AI, things that they probably shouldn't have done was they started creating these in the open, so it has access to the entire internet. In fact, GPT 3.5, GTP4 has read everything on the internet. Okay. So then, secondly, they taught them how to code themselves. All right. So now you've got the experts from Google and some saying the exact same thing. We don't even know what they're doing because they're
What?
writing.
All right. So I use ChatGPT 3.5, and I
Yep.
really, honestly, the only way I've used it so far has been it helps sometimes with headlines. So I'll write a
Correct.
story, original crime and court story, and I have a headline like, so I'll put in ChatGPT, write 5 news headlines for this story. And I already
Right.
have a headline, but I don't tell it what it is. I just want to see what it comes up with. Maybe it has something better. I don't think I've actually ever used one of theirs because it seems like they just sensationalize everything using words
Right.
like shocking amount of this and oh, it's just great. But it gives me ideas and helps a little bit. So it's kind of helpful there. But I remember even putting in like write a bio about DrydenWire founder Ben Dryden, and it was way off on everything. I mean
Right.
everything. Like I was in the military, and I'm like, what in the world? So it
Yep.
scrapes everything off the internet to kind of put this information together. I ask it specific questions about like here's the content. Now do something with this, rather than just go find this on the internet because I've discovered that it's not always accurate. But if it always is scraping the internet and if people are using it, eventually isn't AI just going to be reusing the same information that they already created?
And it can also create its own information. That's the scary part of
Yeah,
it. It
that's a
just
whole other
makes
thing.
stuff
It
up.
can
Right.
code itself. I did not know that.
Yeah, and then the third thing they did was they gave it access to all of the chat bots, all of the add-ons out there. So now it's learning from itself, it's coding itself, but every chatbot out there that's on the internet is also teaching it as well. So when you look at like a gentleman named Mo Gadot, he was the number 2 man at Google for years. He quit, and the last I think 4 years, 3 years, all he's done is try to educate people on what we've done. And like the best way to put it, he says, all right, envision this, Ben. You and I are out in the wilderness camping. We're sitting by a fire. He said, why are we out here? Are we out here because the machines are hunting us? Or are we out here because AI's made it so great that we've got all this leisure time? And he said it could be either way at this point, but we just don't know.
Well, neither of those scenarios sound horrible. I mean, for me it does
No,
because outside, gross. Um, but why are you so? This is part of you're looking into, and the legislature is looking into. What role does the legislature play in this?
yeah, what guardrails can the legislature put on AI? That's the question.
But is
The
that I thought that
year,
was a federal thing. That's why I should have prefaced it a little bit better.
yep,
What does the
it,
Wisconsin legislature have to say or do about this?
correct. It should be federal. It could be federal. In fact, I see Biden just issued
I saw,
directives
yeah.
2 days ago on AI, which thank God should have been done a year ago, but it's neither here nor there. Um, so what we're looking at, what can we do here? But more importantly, on the good side of AI, you can see tremendous potential for healthcare. for education. Um, I've seen educators using it right now. I've seen kids using it right now, but get caught to a certain degree because they're using it to write papers and stuff. And then when they're questioned on the papers, well, wait a minute, you didn't really write this, did you? No, Chat GPT 3 or 4 wrote it, per
Yeah.
se. Um, in the medical field, Google's got an AI out there that has been specifically working medical imaging. It's more in all of the tests that's done over the last year. It's more precise in finding more things than radiologists are in X-rays, MRIs, CT scans. So you can see once they deploy these on a bigger basis, what it could potentially do as far as cost savings go. Could be great. Same with education. But on the flip side, how many jobs are going to be lost due to this?
Ah,
And
I
how do you
don't.
pay for that?
Well, yeah, I don't know. How far are you into this? You said it's a task force. Who's on this
Yep.
task force? I don't need names, but I mean, is it like a dozen people? Is it Republicans? Is it bipartisan? Who's on a task force?
It's bipartisan. We've got both sides on there. I think it's 8 of us or 9 of
Sure.
us. Um, we're bringing in department heads as needed from state agencies. Like, for example, DSPS has been notorious for being slow on putting out um, licenses, etc. How can AI help that? Well, they're exploring that right now. All right. Um, the DWD, Department of Workforce Development, same thing. They're looking at using AI right now to speeding up claims, et cetera, et cetera. So there is a tremendous amount of stuff that this can be used for, good for. But some of the fundamental things that came out of this, which were interesting, was all right. Chat GPT 4, which I've got, you got to buy it, which is fine, but I've done some cool stuff on the economic development side with it. um, Chat GPT 4, they say, has an IQ of about 155. That's Elon Musk. All right. Einstein was what, 160, I think? All
Wow.
right. So if you look at that, Chat GPT 5, they estimate it's coming out in a year to 15 months. They said that'll have 10 times the smartness of 4. Well, does that give you an IQ of
Holy cow.
1500? And all right, I'm an IQ, I think 120. All right,
Is
I,
that
I
good? I
could
mean, sounds fantastic.
no
We're just going to say that's great.
that's
Uh,
let's say it's fine.
okay.
Kind of normal. I think so. I can understand some of what Einstein's saying at the 160, but I'm not going to be able to understand anything a 1600 or 1500 IQ is saying.
I don't know. This
Not
morning, I was reading a story, and it was they were referencing an aristocrat. And I remember thinking, I know that word. I think it's something about, I don't know, England or maybe monarchs or something. I can't remember. So I quickly just Googled it, for aristocrat definition,
yep.
and it said the definition of aristocrat is members of an what was arist how do you pronounce that, aristocracy, right?
Oh,
And I'm like, well, that didn't
okay.
help. That didn't
Yeah,
help at
for the
all.
ones
That's like saying, give me a definition of daylight. It comes before and after night, or it's just, yeah. So I think ChatGPT is already way past my IQ. I can't even understand definitions in dictionaries.
Well, I know. And then one thing I tried to do, because I'm on, along with the assembly, I'm on the board of directors for WDC, which is Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. So I've asked them for a couple of years now. It would be grand if we could somehow map all of the supply chains in Wisconsin. All right. And I've heard from everybody saying, oh my God, the amount of work that would go into that. So I asked Chat GPT 4, how would I map all the supply chains in Wisconsin? It took it about 10 seconds and it gave me a 15 point, here's what you need to do. I was like, oh, holy smokes, this is great. At least I got a plan. But then I started looking at it's going to take me a lifetime to do this myself. So I've had it doing it. And it's amazing the work it's done as far as, break it down to NAICS codes. Each business has a NAICS code. And then you got to map out the whole supply chain for NAICS codes in Wisconsin for that. But then you've got to look for what other NAICS codes supply products or parts to this. So, I mean, I'm having Chat GPT 4 do all of this in, I don't know how long it would take me to do something like that.
Well, wait for the next one to come out that's going to be 10 times smarter and just tell it to do it.
Exactly.
There you go. Here's a problem. Fix it.
And then what's the funny thing, though, is now if you've got Chat GPT 6 right after that, if that's 10 times smarter, the same guy from Google brought up a good analogy. He says you're almost getting to the point of a relationship of an ant to a human as us to AI when it gets that smart.
Yeah, that's a little scary. So now I guess I see why legislature and the federal government are kind of looking into this.
Right.
Because that could go sideways pretty fast. I mean, all of a sudden, like the movie I, Robot makes a lot more sense.
I agree. And see, that's the interesting part is that's what we found that there is some AI producers creating a good example, too, is the same guy, Mogadot, that was with
Google.
Google.
You said, yeah.
All right. He asked AI for how would
a woodchuck
AI eventually kill all humans. Okay. And it said very simply what it would do first is attack all of the power grids worldwide, knock out all the power. And they said that the human race would, in essence, die off over X amount of years. And he said, next question he followed up, all right, how would a human stop that? And AI said, you couldn't. It would take another AI to stop the AI from doing that.
All right, now you're freaking me out.
Yep. Oh, so it gets interesting. So
who assigned the task force? Or who came up with the idea for a task force? So the governors at the legislature?
Well, the governor's got one too, apparently. That's the funny thing. Whenever he hears we're doing something, he quick throws one in. So he's got one, but it's just the department heads, and I don't know if they've met yet.
Well, that's nice that nobody really knows.
Yeah, and so we've got ours, and I think we'll be on our third meeting, the next meeting.
Well, this has nothing to do with partisanship. I mean, right? Oh, I'm sorry. That was so stupid that I just said that. Because, of course, I'm sure it has to, because everything has to be partisan.
It shouldn't, though, in a case like this.
It shouldn't be, but how is this? Or why is this partisan? Like, Republicans want this, and Democrats, want this. What?
No, and this is one I think, and I haven't seen the partisanship yet in the questioning from either side when we're in the hearing, because it is. Wait. There's potential for great good, but some scary potential as well.
I just saw. I think we put it on DrydenWire. It was a press release from Governor Evers. Oh boy, it was this week. I don't remember when. A couple days ago. And I didn't read it through all of it. It was quite lengthy. And to be perfectly honest, I don't really read all the press releases that are sent to us because my job is to get it posted. I don't read through all of them. But I remember the headline, and it was along the lines that he's suing the Republicans or maybe it's a Republican legislator for something. I didn't actually read what it was. Something about limiting executive powers, or I can't remember. I'm sure you're familiar with this. What is going on?
Yeah, to a certain degree. I saw the same thing too, and it was so long and drawn out that I kind of just glazed over it. And when things like this happen, we take it up in detail when we get into caucus.
All right? Sure.
So we've got caucus next week where we'll be looking at this. So frankly, I did the same thing as you on this one, just glossed it over like, all right, he's suing us again, type of thing. So,
this is common.
Oh, yeah, he's always taking, because he's got such a good veto pen, he's gone above and beyond this time to get creative in its uses. So naturally, the legislature's fighting back. And so when that doesn't work, he immediately goes to lawsuits, okay? There's lawsuits out there right now for redistricting. There's lawsuits out there. I think there's one Well, it was already decided on the abortion issue. Um, so no, he's not afraid to sue at all. Just like I'm sure we wouldn't be
Yeah.
if that was the only result.
I
Only
remember
recourse.
it when I first started DrydenWire. That was back in 2015. And I think we started some of our shows the following year after. And I can't remember who was on. Maybe it was Romaine Quinn way back then. I don't want to say that because I don't remember. And and that's when I first found out that the governor of Wisconsin has the most powerful veto pen in for any governor in the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And I saw someone had commented on, I think on Facebook, and said that, well, why didn't you Republicans get that taken care of? You can't complain about it now with Evers when you had Governor Walker's the Republican as the governor, and I think the Assembly and Senate were still controlled by the Republicans. Why didn't you do it? And my understanding was that they all assumed that he was going to win a third term, and that was when they wanted to, do this, kind of address it, because like, okay, we really kind of do want to rein that back a little bit. But then, of course, Evers wins, and now their hands are tied. So maybe they should have gotten it done a little earlier. That's what I was told.
And I'm still wondering, too, if it would have got done a little bit earlier, because is any governor going to want to give up that power?
No.
Either side,
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding.
And that's the scary
thing. Yeah, what a mess. What are you able to? So what have you been able to get done?
Well, we got the budget done. Thank God that was finished. We're coming back to try to do some fixes. The one piece that got a lot of, I guess, notoriety was we had passed a lot of tax cuts. All right. He vetoed two of them. The high bracket, which I understand why he vetoed, because I figured he would. But then the middle bracket he vetoed, and that's what boggled everybody, because where it starts is individuals making $13.30 an hour up to $400,000 a year. All right, so it's a wide.
That's a huge amount of people right there.
It's a wide bracket, and he didn't like it because it was too many quote rich people got tax breaks. It's like $13.30 an hour ain't rich in nobody's book. I mean, you're starting at McDonald's more expensive than that. You're starting at Quick Trip for more expensive than that. It's probably more than what childcare workers are making. Mm-hmm. So, and I get it, and so we've passed that again. It's over in the Senate right now. The Senate, though, did a veto override on his original vetoes, and which is sitting there because the Assembly can't override them.
Because you don't have you have to have a supermajority, right?
Yeah, we need 2 more votes.
Got it.
But we passed the version, not the most expensive version or the highest earners, but we passed that middle bracket again, and we'll see what happens with it, because I think the governor said he'll veto it again. Which
did he explain why he vetoed? You had mentioned that it was the rich, so it was like on the higher end of that tier. So you're saying like hey, 13 to 18 bucks an hour. This day and age, that's a normal amount. My 20-year-old daughter, she goes to school part-time, and she has a part-time job just making like cold food prep stuff at like a nursing home or something like that. She's making like $17.50 an hour.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's a common amount right now. But the 400,000, I mean, that is a pretty big tax bracket. Holy cow! I kind of feel like there should be maybe one in between there. That's a big difference. I always thought it was like up to like 150. I didn't know what to 400,000. But how many people really even fall into that category of the 200 to 400,000? We're talking individuals, I'm assuming.
Right, and well, the biggest problem with once you start getting to that 400,000, that's you. That's everybody else here that's got a business, because you're probably running it as an LLC. It's going to flow through on your income tax return.
Yep.
So, I mean, you got a Schedule C, more than likely it goes on your 1040. So that affects individuals, and they say $400,000 is rich. Well, no, not necessarily when you think of a business flowing through on there. So I don't consider myself rich, though I'm not making anywhere near $400,000 a year.
No.
How about a quarter of that?
Yeah, yeah.
But anyways, so and what it fundamentally boils down to is he wants the money for different uses. All right, because there's still I think about 4 billion that's usable in our fund. All right. This will take up about 3 billion of it. I mean, the tax rate takes up a lot of money. All right. But
Wow.
he's got all his pet projects that he wants monies for.
Okay.
So that's where the rub comes is, do you want to give it back to the people, or do you want to use it for other things?
I see. Three. That is okay. Now that makes more sense, and you have to have a reason for it. I don't know
Right.
why you just don't. If that is true, I don't know why just don't you say that.
Right, exactly. But
Be
he wanted
transparent, be honest about it. It's fine.
Yep.
I think a lot of people would appreciate just that.
I
We got
agree.
about 3.5, 4 billion. This would take up 3, and that's going to mean we can't do like 100 other things that I want to get done. It'd be like, okay,
Right.
totally get it. Just
And
say
then
it though.
right, then it just becomes philosophy or beliefs,
Yeah,
Democrat beliefs
yep.
versus
And that's
Republican.
fine. I think people are
Right.
fine with that.
I agree. Yep. You just got to figure out which you want to do. One example, which I'm hesitant to even bring up because it gets so wound out of shape, is
Yes,
he
please
wanted
bring it up, whatever it is.
he wanted yeah he wanted to put 340 million into childcare. All right.
Yeah.
I'm up to my eyeballs in childcare because I deal with them on a weekly basis on economic development.
Oh, sure.
So I get it. During COVID, the government, the feds, put in 340 million into what's called the CARES program.
Yep.
Right? It gave extra monies to daycares so they could raise the wages of their workers, of childcare workers,
Okay.
which they need to do because they're paid horribly low. Okay. And so he wants, but that's to me the always the downside of taking federal money because that goes away eventually, and the state has to pick it up.
Right.
All right. So now he wants to put
Right.
that
Hold on a
three.
second. I said right, but I should have said really
Yes.
because I just
Yep.
want to clarify that. So, I mean, I've heard that before,
Yep.
but could you actually, before you go on, explain what that is? So, if the government gives us some money, and is there like a tiered effect where it kind of goes down 100% year one, 50% year two, or is it just for 1 year and then it goes away and who picks up? How does that work?
Yeah. No. In this case, they gave as part of the CARES Act and the COVID monies. All right, so they put 340 million into this. All right, it gave extra money to the child care centers so they could pay workers. All right, great, everything's good there. All right, last year, mid year, they cut it in half. Okay, all of the child care centers like, oh my God, you got to fund this, blah 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 blah. And then the governor put it into his budget. He wants 340 million for it. We looked at it
To
and said,
continue it. Okay.
right. And we looked at it and said, no, we never discussed it. We never looked at it as something the feds put down to us. We want to take a look at this before we just throw money at it. All
Makes
right.
sense.
All right. So then the governor came back, which there's a truth in this, and saying, if you don't do this, a bunch of child care centers will go out of business. Like, oh, okay, there's probably
Okay.
a grain of truth in that. But then I looked at the numbers from last year, even with the 340 million in, and 208 childcare centers went out of business. All right. So is there another fundamental problem with the childcare industry? There's a bunch of them. So now do you look at trying to address those issues? And honestly, it would have been nice to get a little bit of money in there, but do we address the issues or
Throw
and the
money at it.
governor but the governor finally did because he could. He's still got $1 billion of COVID money he can use. So he ultimately threw in 150 million worth of that to fund it at half up until mid 25. And it's like, why didn't you just do that in the first place? And let's talk about what other things we've got to do for the childcare industry to make it whole.
Romaine,
But
Romaine was on the show last Thursday. Yeah, last Thursday, and he had brought that up. So I didn't know that until he's like he's got like that money that he has, and he's like, well, why not just use? And if he did put in the 150, why not just put in the whole 340 then? And if he knew it the whole time, but then it was
right,
after the show, I was thinking about it. I'm like, and I think I have the answer. So I'm glad you actually brought that up. I think I know why, because you just said, then why didn't you just do this to begin with? Why have it go through here? And this isn't a knock on Governor Evers. This is politics. Because if I
Correct.
can make all the Republicans look bad and then still use some of mine, now I can make them look bad and I can be the hero. I'm not banging on that approach. That's really smart, actually. But that's
Right.
why I think it happened. Do you think maybe there's a part of that, a little truth to
I
that?
would agree. Yep, because he's the hero now. Because he's. But
Right.
again, what it boils down to is let's take the other. They have virtually nobody going into childcare, so we've got to deal with how do we get more workers into childcare. It's hard for childcare centers to start. They don't have the money to start. So we've passed what 5 bills I think it is so far addressing some of the deficiencies of the childcare industry. He hasn't signed them yet. So it'll be interesting to see does he sign those or doesn't he? Because it's got to be an all of the above approach. You got to deal with the industry itself and its shortcomings and just fundamentally look at how do we fund it. There was one Democrat brought up the idea of, well, let's just put another um, employee like tax, like payroll type tax and tax all the employers. And I could say, oh, geez, I could see the bottom dropping out of that one real quick. But
Yeah.
how else do we do this? And the approach we're taking is let's incentivize employers to pay a portion of this. Okay, but an incentive, not a penalty like another tax. Let's incentivize them. And so I've got a bill I just dropped last week on that incentivize employers to buy slots in daycare just for their workers, not pay for the daycare, but buy a slot. And the daycare center, the child care center can use that to pay employees. Great, everybody wins.
So I'm sure this is not even close to a comparison. But when I was listening to that, it sounds like some like salons, where there's a salon that owns a business, but then somebody like rents out like a chair. Is that what? Because I don't really understand what you're saying. That you have like
Sure.
slots.
All right, so pick an employer here. Pick Ben. All right, you can put $100 a month into this daycare to buy a slot for one of your
Oh,
employees. Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
All
Yeah.
right, that makes more sense now. We have a
Yeah.
question here. I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
Go ahead.
There's a question. I can't put on the screen. It's too long, Renee. So I'll just read the first part. So, Dave, what can you do? What can you do or address the pricing of medication? I'm on a fixed income and pay for 2 health insurances. In the mail, noticed are going out to let us know the increase in our meds. Do you know that we are paying an increase in meds these past 2 months that have me and many others playing a game of which we can afford? I think not afford at this time, or maybe we can afford at this time. I'm sorry. So increasing now, and at the first of the year, I'm not alone on this issue. The increase isn't just $1; it's like 20 plus for each prescription. So what can the legislature do up for this?
Looking at it right now, I've got a father that's going to be 90 in 2 months, and my mom's 85. So I live this every day with them. We met with, all right, along with the medication, we've got some pretty severe issues going on with assisted living as well. Okay. And so just last week, I met with the committee chair, vice chair of the Assembly Committee on Health, and then we brought in Inclusa, Humana, and 2 other entities to talk about what's going on with um, healthcare, if you will, for the elderly. And it sucks, to be honest with you, because I've gone through so much with my dad and my mom that once you reach an age, to me, it appears that the industry doesn't give a damn about you anymore. Okay. And that's what's unfortunate. So, specifically to the medication side, something we're looking at because we've got to figure out within the state Medicare, Medicaid system, what can we do versus what needs to be done on the federal level.
Mm.
And that's the rub that we've got right now. What can we do without screwing up everything on the federal level?
Yeah, I'd be a terrible legislator. Well, for 1,000 reasons. But one that comes to mind is, yeah, here's the thing. We have to take care of our kids, and we have to take care of our of senior citizens and elderly, the people that are coming after us and the people who came before us. And if you're 25 to 65 or 35 to 55, somewhere in there, like jack up their taxes. I don't care. And just have it all go to things for the community, for kids, and for our elderly. I know that's a horrible idea, which is why I'd be a terrible legislator. But we have the ability, most of us do, to actually work if we choose to work and work hard and etc. We have that capability when we're in our 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. But come on, we got to take care of those that came before us. That's ridiculous. I'd rather have them have good health insurance and assisted living and more help there, and get rid of that dumb like death tax and all that stuff. Come on, what are we doing? Fine, take more out of my check. Go right ahead. I don't care. Just as long as it goes directly towards that stuff. I don't know. You're right. We kind of seem to forget about those.
Yeah, and there's a lot of work to be done there too. I mean, I've got one lady that's been very persistent, and I mean it's good because her mother lives in assisted living in Rice Lake, and it's taken me forever to try to figure out the problem. And the issue is because of Medicaid guidelines, she can only have $100 a month to herself for expenses. Well, and the issue is, I know, don't even get me started on this one. So, and try getting internet, try buying a newspaper, try doing any of that with $100 a month. All right. So in other words, like she said, my mom just sits there doing nothing all day listening to the radio. And it's like, I can't even fathom that. So that's what I'm trying to work out with. All right. How do I get that $100 a month raised? Well, then it opens up a whole can of worms on federal Medicaid side. So now I think we finally got a solution for that we're going to work with through Inclusa and Humana, because Humana just bought Inclusa. It's the managed care organization for this area. So they think they come up with a way to get her internet. Good. But it's just like, oh, come on, people. It's stupid things like this that defy logic.
And these are the people who have contributed so much to taxes and to life and to communities up until this point. And that was what I was saying before. It's like we kind of just forget about it. Like, all right, thanks for everything you've done. Now, go in some home somewhere. We don't care anymore.
Yeah, go sit in this room all day, every day, and listen to the radio.
That's ridiculous.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. You had mentioned at the very beginning of the show that this is your second time in. Right, you're on your second one. It's a 2-year election, so that's next year. It's coming up already.
Correct.
Have you made a decision?
If
you're running again.
When I got into this, I said I'd do 3. So I'm going to try it one more time, depending on how everything flies out here. As far as is going to be new districts, isn't there? Who knows?
Oh yeah, when is that? When do? Oh shoot! Right. So when do you have to have papers in for the fall? Well, you obviously it's what does it have to be, like April 1st for partisan?
Next April.
Okay.
That's why they got to get this thing done if they're going to do something on it. Because we got to take out papers in April.
So 5 months, but they're going to have a decision. Likely not in 5 months. You're going to want to have that decision made several months before that. So that's. Do you think that will happen? Do you think there will be a decision? Because, no matter what happens, someone's going to then sue somebody else to put this on hold. Do you think that through all of the lawsuits that are everyone's going to file something? Do you see it likely resolving before April 1st?
I honestly don't know, because at this point, is the Supreme Court going to redraw the boundaries? Or, we passed Iowa-style redistricting, which is what the governor has asked for his last 2 State of the State addresses, but now he doesn't want it. So are they going to do the redistricting, or are they going to let the Supreme Court do it? We just don't know at this point.
Well, that's always helpful. I don't know.
Yeah. So am I going to have the same, under the one, he had his maps commission do maps last time the governor did.
I remember.
And on one map, the 75th ended up way the hell up by Ashland or something or other. And I wasn't even remotely close to it. Well, the final maps that he put in, the 75th that he proposed and the one that I got were virtually identical. So it's like, all right, I didn't have any issue with his maps under that side because there was no change here. But what's going to go on with the maps, we just don't know yet.
That's ridiculous.
We're all going to find out together.
All right. Dave, it's an absolute pleasure having you on. Is there anything that you want to make sure we talked about that we didn't get a chance to talk about?
No, the one thing I think Romaine brought up last week, and I differed with him a little bit on it, was the Brewers Stadium. Okay, because I looked at it from an economic development perspective because I deal with this every day, and I have zero emotional attachment to the Brewers, none. All right, I grew up in the Twin Cities. The Twins were my team, so Brewers, I'm like, what? So I don't have that emotional attachment to it. But when I looked at all the numbers for it, it's cheaper to keep them. It really is. And so I voted yes when the assembly came out to it because the money we're putting back into the stadiums comes from taxation of players' salaries. Not all of it is used. And so it's like either we do something, and what it boils down to right now, you've got San Antonio trying to get them. You've got Tennessee trying to get them. You've got Austin trying to get a pro baseball team. So there are other areas they can go to. And I just looked at it as it really is for the state cheaper to keep them.
All right. You and I may have to go around that one a little bit offline.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sold on that. Yeah. All right. What are you up to this weekend?
This weekend, not much. I've got the original Rice Lake Jail on my property from the 1900s. Yeah, I know it's weird, but I've got the original Rice Lake Jail. I bought the property that it was on, and the roof got hammered this year with the hail, so we started it last weekend, so I'm re-roofing the jail to kind of keep it in.
Is there still jail cells with bars?
Yeah.
Shut up.
It was interesting how it was the first flush toilet, too, I think, in Rice Lake, but it flushed right down to the ground,
Oh, right. Yeah. So technically flush, but,
Yeah,
oh, my goodness. Yeah. We need to move our we're looking for a place to house our DrydenWire studio because everything I'm doing is like literally right here in my dining room. And, light changes everywhere all the time. It's terrible. So we need a place. That would be an awesome location.
I'll take a picture of it and send it up to you. Yeah,
to start doing live shows because we stopped doing them in studio in March of 2020, of course, with COVID. So I'm like, well, what's the point of staying here and renting a place that it's going to be at least a year? So that's when we started doing them all remotely. Well, now it's that's kind of in the past. So now we're looking for a place that would just be so awesome, having jail cells as our background. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, it's fun. I'll take pictures of how they built it, too. I mean, it was the 1900s, so they got really unique in how they built this thing.
That's awesome. Awesome. I love it. Dave, thank you so much for coming on.
Appreciate it. Take care, Ben.
Special thank you to Wisconsin's 75th Assembly District Representative Dave Armstrong for taking time to come on for a chat with us today. I'll see you all right back here on Tuesday when Barron County Sheriff Chris Fitzgerald and I will be back for our latest episode of Positive Tuesday with Ben and Fitzy, soon coming to a jail cell near you. So until then, for DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden saying thank you for watching, and as always, have a blessed day.